The night sky above the Valorian observation deck was silent, painted with the cold light of distant stars. Their fleet drifted on the edge of a forgotten system, quiet, still, and cautious. For weeks they had been tracking a strange object moving through the void. It wasn't a natural body. It was massive, metal, and alive with strange energy patterns. The humans called it the Invictus. To the Valorians, it was something unknown. Their sensors had never recorded such a design. Sharp angles mixed with strong armor plating, like a beast from another world that had chosen to sleep in space. Its engines were cold, its weapons silent, yet the power signature pulsed faintly like a slow heartbeat. The Valorian commander stood near the viewing port, hands clasped behind his back. His people had crossed hundreds of light years and seen many civilizations rise and fall. Most species they met were simple, curious, sometimes primitive, sometimes arrogant. But humans, they were different. They expanded fast, too fast, reaching systems even the Valorians had not yet studied. Now one of their ships was here, unmoving, watching the stars like a predator waiting in the dark. The commander wanted answers. "Prepare the scanners," he ordered softly. The crew obeyed. Blue lights flickered on the consoles as the first scanning waves reached toward the human vessel. The Valorians were proud of their technology. It could read the molecular structure of a planet from millions of kilometers away. They expected the human ship to reveal its secrets easily, but nothing about the Invictus came easy. As the first scan hit the ship's surface, the data that returned made no sense. The hull was coated with something that wasn't metal, wasn't crystal, wasn't anything they had cataloged before. It was alive with electric charge, shifting like it was aware of the scan. A technician frowned and adjusted the power. "Try increasing the frequency," the commander said. They did. The scanners went deeper this time, digging past the armor, past the framework into the internal systems. Then without warning, one of the panels sparked. A small flash of blue light spread across the station's control board. A low alarm echoed through the bridge. "What happened?" the commander demanded. The technician's voice shook. "Feedback surge, sir. The human ship is reflecting our signal back. It's almost like it's scanning us." For a few moments, no one spoke. The commander turned his gaze to the dark shape outside the viewport. The Invictus floated silently, not moving an inch. But the energy around it seemed to grow. A faint pulse, slow and steady. The Valorians were used to analyzing, not being analyzed. "Continue," the commander said finally. "Let's see what secrets they're hiding." The second scan began. Data poured in, columns of numbers rushing down the screens. The ship's energy core came into view, a massive structure glowing from within. It wasn't the usual reactor type they expected. It was something new. It looked organic, almost like a living heart surrounded by metal veins. Every few seconds it pulsed, sending out waves of power across the ship's systems. The Valorians stared at the display, speechless. One whispered, "That can't be right." "A living core?" "Impossible," said another. "No species would merge life with machinery like that. It's unstable, but the data didn't lie. The human ship's heart was alive and it beat with purpose." The commander leaned closer to the main monitor. "Magnify the core." "I want full detail." They zoomed in. The scanners started to trace the inner design. But as they did, something strange began to happen again. The readings became distorted. The signal started to twist back toward them. The lights dimmed, screens flickered, and a deep static noise filled the bridge. "Cut the scan," someone shouted, too late. The feedback surged through the systems like lightning. Sparks flew, lights flickered, and several crew members jumped back from their consoles. Then just as suddenly everything went quiet. The only sound was the slow hum of emergency lights. When the main screen came back online, a single message appeared in their language. "You're not the only ones who can look." A wave of fear passed through the bridge. The humans knew. They had detected the scan and replied, instantly, silently, and perfectly translated. The commander stood frozen. He had faced wars, rebellions, even other species' armies, but he had never seen a message like this. It wasn't angry. It wasn't even a warning. It felt calm, confident. "What kind of species builds something like this?" a young officer asked quietly. No one answered. The commander turned toward his communication officer. "Record everything. Send a full report to the council. I want every scientist analyzing this ship's technology before dawn." The officer nodded, still pale. "Yes, Commander." Outside, the Invictus remained still. It didn't move, didn't speak, didn't attack. Yet the Valorians couldn't shake the feeling that the ship was watching them. Inside that giant metal fortress, life continued as usual. The human crew went about their duties with quiet focus. The control deck was filled with soft lights and gentle machine sounds. Their commander, calm and composed, stood in front of the main screen. She knew the aliens were scanning them. She had known the moment the first wave of energy brushed against their hull. External sensors confirmed they're analyzing the outer layers, said the ship's AI. Its voice was smooth and steady, like a trusted companion. The commander nodded. Let them. They're curious. They might interpret our systems as hostile. Curiosity often looks like fear, she said softly. The AI paused. Do you wish me to respond? The commander thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. Just a reminder that we're awake. The AI obeyed, sending the single message the aliens had already received. You're not the only ones who can look. For the crew, it was a moment of quiet pride. They didn't fear the scan. They had faced worse, the endless dark, the silence of deep space, the loneliness that came from being so far from home. This was just another test, another moment to prove that humanity could stand its ground. Every person aboard the Invictus carried their own story. Some had left families behind, some had no one waiting for them, but all of them believed in one thing, that humans had the right to explore, to exist, and to be respected among the stars. In the observation bay, one of the engineers looked out at the Valorian fleet. Tiny blue lights glowed across their ships. They think they're the hunters, he said quietly. The commander joined him, her hands resting behind her back. Let them think that for now, she replied. Sometimes letting others underestimate you is the best defense. Back on the Valorian flagship, the technicians slowly recovered their systems. They ran diagnostics, checked the scanners, and whispered among themselves. The commander remained silent, deep in thought. What did we learn? He asked finally. The lead scientist hesitated. Their technology surpasses ours in ways I can't explain. Their ship's energy core doesn't obey any known physics. It's like it was designed to imitate life itself. And there's something else. Go on. When we scanned deeper, we detected patterns inside the data. Signals that look like brainwaves. Millions of them. It's as if the ship holds memories, the commander frowned. Are you saying it's conscious? I don't know, the scientist said softly. But whatever it is, it's not a normal machine. The commander looked once more at the silent ship floating in the distance. Then we'll proceed carefully, he said. Don't provoke them again. If this is what humanity builds, then we may be standing at the edge of something far greater than we imagined. He turned away, but the unease in the room didn't fade. The crew felt something watching them, something vast, ancient, and human. Out in the dark, the Invictus began to rotate slowly, its surface glinting faintly under the light of a distant star. To the Valorians, it looked like a sleeping titan opening one eye. Inside, the human commander looked at the holographic projection of the alien ships. Her voice was calm, steady, and quiet. They're afraid, she said. The AI responded, should we reassure them? No, she replied. Let them feel what we felt when we first reached the stars. Fear, wonder, and respect. It's part of learning. She watched the distant fleet drift backward, their engines igniting one by one as they began to retreat. For a moment, she thought about how fragile everything was. Life, peace, understanding, and how easily it could be broken by fear. Then she turned back to the stars. Set course for the next system, she said. We've got a long journey ahead. The engines of the Invictus flared softly, pushing the giant ship into motion once again. The stars stretched across the dark horizon, and behind it, the Valorian ships faded into the distance, still whispering among themselves about what they had seen. They had scanned a human battleship hoping to find weakness. Instead, they found something that shook their belief in superiority. They found something alive, powerful, and calm, something that made them realize humans were not to be underestimated. The void swallowed the ship's light, and silence returned to the stars. But somewhere deep inside that silence, a heartbeat echoed softly, a human heartbeat, steady, strong, and unafraid. Inside the Invictus, time moved differently. There was no sunrise or sunset, only the steady glow of soft lights along the walls and the faint hum of the ship's endless systems. The crew lived in that rhythm between silence and steel, knowing that far beyond their metal walls was nothing but the dark vacuum of space. On the command bridge, the atmosphere was calm but alert. Every crew member worked quietly, their eyes fixed on the glowing screens that showed the positions of nearby ships. The Valorian fleet still lingered at the edge of the system, cautious, confused, and maybe even frightened. But inside the Invictus there was no panic, only focus. The commander stood in the center, hands folded behind their back, eyes locked on the view outside. The stars stretched like frozen sparks across the blackness. "They're still watching," said one of the crew members. "I know," the commander replied softly. "Let them watch. Curiosity doesn't always mean danger." The AI's gentle voice echoed from the console nearby. "Scans from the alien fleet have decreased by 70%. Their energy patterns show uncertainty." "That's good," the commander said. "It means they're thinking." A faint smile passed between a few crew members. On the Invictus, humor was rare, but when it appeared, it was always a sign of calm. They were used to strange encounters. Humans had been the newcomers of the galaxy for only a short time, but in that time, they had learned quickly, sometimes painfully, that the universe respected only strength and courage. One of the engineers, sitting at the power console, spoke quietly. "Do you think they'll try again? Scan us deeper?" The commander glanced at the holographic map. "Maybe, but they'll hesitate this time. Fear always slows the hand." Everyone on the bridge knew the truth behind those words. Humans had once feared everything when they first left their planet. Asteroids, radiation, unknown signals. But fear had taught them to adapt. Every mistake, every loss had made them tougher. Now when others feared them, it was a strange feeling, almost ironic. In the crew quarters, the ship's life continued in small ways. 2 crew members shared a quiet meal, floating trays holding sealed packets of food. A mechanic sat at a workbench fixing a small drone used for repairs. Another wrote messages that would take months to reach Earth. The Invictus wasn't just a weapon, it was a home, a symbol of everything humanity had become. The AI monitored all systems silently, its presence everywhere yet never intrusive. It adjusted temperature levels, oxygen flow, and gravity with precise care. It spoke only when needed. For the crew, it was less a machine and more like another member of their family, dependable, loyal, and aware of their moods. "Commander," the AI said through the bridge speakers, "a transmission has been received from the Valorian fleet." "On screen," the commander ordered. The screen flickered, and the image of the Valorian commander appeared. His skin shimmered faintly under the ship's light, his large dark eyes unreadable. "Human vessel," he began in a slow, careful tone. "Our scan was interrupted. Your systems reacted to our technology in unexpected ways. We meant no harm." The human commander studied him quietly. "Then it's good you stopped when you did." The alien hesitated. "Your ship's readings defy logic. Our scientists cannot understand what powers it. What are you hiding inside that machine?" There was no anger in his voice, only unease. The human commander could sense the curiosity mixed with fear. After a pause, they replied, "Nothing hidden. Everything you see is built by human hands, powered by what you'd call stubbornness and memory." "Memory?" the alien asked, tilting his head. "Yes," the commander said. "We don't forget where we come from or who we've lost. That's what drives this ship." The alien's face remained still, but his tone softened. "You humans carry ghosts with you." "Maybe," the commander said. "But they remind us why we keep moving." The communication ended without hostility, but the bridge stayed silent for a moment. Everyone could feel the weight of what had just been said. Humans didn't build their ships for glory. They built them for survival, for remembrance. Later, in the maintenance bay, 2 engineers worked side by side repairing a damaged section of hull plating. One of them glanced up at the walls where faint vibrations pulsed through the metal. "It's strange," he said. "Sometimes I feel like the ship's alive. Like it knows we're here," the other smiled. "It does. Maybe not the way we think, but it feels everything we do. Every heartbeat, every breath. That's how it keeps us safe." He wasn't wrong. The Invictus had systems that responded to human presence. Sensors could detect emotional stress, adjusting light and temperature to calm the crew. The ship could read body signals and provide oxygen more efficiently during rest hours. It wasn't just programmed, it learned. And in that learning it carried something human, something no alien technology had ever replicated. Empathy. Hours passed. The alien fleet drifted farther away, but their long-range sensors stayed fixed on the Invictus. In their own ships, the Valorians argued and debated. Some believed the humans were too dangerous to be allowed near their territories. Others believed they were misunderstood, but none could explain what their scanners had revealed. The living energy, the heartbeat, the strange data that seemed to carry millions of patterns inside the ship. They didn't know that deep within the Invictus, past its armored layers, a chamber existed that was unlike any other. Inside were the echo arrays, a network of data cores holding centuries of human history, memories, voices, and experiences of those who had once sailed through the stars before them. The crew often visited the chamber not to use it, but simply to listen. When a crew member entered, the walls glowed softly, and the recorded voices of past explorers filled the air, men and women speaking about courage, hope, and home. It reminded the living why they were out there. The Invictus wasn't haunted by ghosts. It was guided by them. That night, if night could be called such in space, the commander walked alone through the long central corridor. The walls shimmered faintly with reflected starlight from the viewports. Every sound of footsteps echoed softly. They paused near the observation deck, looking out into the void. The AI's voice came gently. "You haven't rested in 16 hours. "I will soon," the commander replied. "You're thinking about the Valorians?" "Yes. They're not the first to look at us with fear, but this time feels different. They didn't expect to find life in a machine. They see something they don't understand," the AI said. "And what we don't understand, we fear," the commander nodded. "That's what makes us human, too. We feared everything once, but we learned." For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the hum of the engines filled the silence. Then the AI said softly, "They might return. Should we prepare for defense?" "No," the commander said. "Not yet. If they want to know us, let them learn who we truly are. No threats, no weapons, just truth." Back aboard the Valorian ship, the alien commander reviewed the scan data again and again. The readings were impossible. The ship's core emitted signals that resembled biological heartbeats, strong, steady, rhythmic. He zoomed into the energy pattern and a faint wave appeared, pulsing like blood through veins. His second officer entered the room. "Commander, our council demands an explanation. They say the human ship is too dangerous to ignore." The commander sighed. "Dangerous, perhaps, but not because of weapons. Because they are something we've never seen before. Machines that feel, people who remember. Do you believe the stories? That humans once destroyed entire worlds in wars? I believe they've suffered more than most, and somehow that suffering made them unbreakable." He looked out the viewport toward the distant glimmer of the Invictus. "Tell the council this, I won't attack them, not yet. Not until we understand what we're truly dealing with." The second officer hesitated, then nodded and left. Alone, the Valorian commander stared into the stars and whispered, "What kind of heart beats inside a machine?" On the other side of the void, the Invictus glided forward, engines glowing like a slow dawn in the darkness. Inside, the crew prepared for their next journey. Some worked, some rested, some shared quiet laughter in the mess hall. Despite the cold vastness outside, warmth filled the ship. For them, it wasn't just about exploring space. It was about proving that humanity belonged out here. They had crossed the line between fear and wonder, between isolation and discovery. Every star they passed was a reminder that they had come so far from the blue world they once called home. The commander took one last look through the observation window before heading to rest. The alien fleet was barely visible now, only small dots fading into the black. A small smile touched their lips. "They'll understand one day," they murmured. "Maybe not now, but someday." As they walked away, the AI dimmed the light slightly, simulating a quiet night cycle. The heartbeat of the ship continued to pulse through the hull, a soft, steady rhythm that matched the heartbeats of the humans inside it. Outside, space remained silent. But that silence carried something new, a message that needed no words. Humanity was not out there to conquer. They were there to endure. And as the Invictus moved farther into the void, its glowing trail lingered behind like a faint promise, whispering to the stars that humans had come a long way and they weren't turning back. The next day on the Invictus began quietly, just like every other day in space. The same soft lights glowed across the long corridors, and the same gentle hum of the engines echoed through the steel walls. but something in the air felt different. The crew could feel it too, even if no one said it out loud. The Valorian ships had withdrawn from close range, but their presence still lingered in the distance. It was as if they were waiting, watching from the shadows. On the bridge, the commander reviewed the system reports while sipping a small cup of recycled water. The AI's soft voice filled the air. Long-range sensors confirm the Valorian fleet has moved to a safer distance, but their scans are still active. They're trying to understand what they saw yesterday. The commander nodded slowly. Curiosity mixed with fear, they said. That's how every story in space begins. A young officer looked up from the communication console. Do you think they'll come back? They will, the commander said simply. When fear turns into obsession, they always do. The crew exchanged uncertain glances. Most of them had served long enough to know that first contact with alien races could go either way, peaceful or tragic. The humans had learned that lesson the hard way over the years. Sometimes a handshake became a partnership. Other times a misunderstanding became a war. But for now, the Invictus remained calm like a sleeping lion surrounded by curious wolves. Far away aboard the Valorian flagship, tension was rising. The commander of the alien fleet stood in the center of a dark observation room, surrounded by glowing displays. Scientists, technicians, and military officers filled the space, each of them focused on the impossible data scrolling across their screens. One of the scientists spoke up. We've run every kind of analysis. The human ship's power core doesn't match any known reactor type. It's not nuclear, not plasma, not even dark matter. It reacts like an organic organism. Explain, the alien commander said quietly. It produces energy the way a heart pumps blood. There are rhythmic pulses. It even emits heat patterns that resemble biological function. It's almost like... The scientist hesitated, then added softly, like the ship is alive. A murmur spread through the room. The idea was absurd, impossible. Machines didn't breathe. Ships didn't think. But every test confirmed the same result. Another scientist adjusted the readings. We tried to scan deeper into the ship's core, but something stopped us. Some kind of feedback loop. It sent a pulse back through our instruments, strong enough to damage them. We can't penetrate its inner systems. The commander's expression darkened. So, the humans built something even our technology can't read. Not just that, the scientist said. There's more. The lights dimmed slightly as the main screen changed. Strange waveforms appeared, complex, layered, and repeating in patterns. These are consciousness signatures, the scientist explained. When we scan living beings, their minds produce electromagnetic patterns. But these signals, there are billions of them inside the human ship. The room went silent. The alien commander stared at the screen. Billions? Yes, the scientist said. At first we thought it was a sensor error, but the data is consistent. The Invictus carries the neural signatures of countless human minds. The commander's voice dropped low. Are you suggesting that ship is filled with people? Not living ones, the scientist said carefully. These are echoes, recorded consciousness. It's as if the humans have somehow captured memories, maybe even the personalities of their dead, and stored them inside the ship. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Every person in the room felt a chill run through them. One of the officers whispered, "A ship filled with the memories of the dead." That's not technology. That's madness, but deep down the commander felt something else, fear. Not because of danger, but because what they were seeing challenged everything they knew about life and death. On the Invictus, the humans were unaware of the full details of what the aliens had discovered. For them, the mission continued as planned. The commander sat quietly in the command chair, lost in thought. The AI's voice spoke softly. "You seem concerned." "I'm thinking," the commander said, "about what they must be seeing when they scan us. They're looking at a machine, but what they don't realize is that they're also looking at memory, at sacrifice." "The echo arrays," the AI replied. "They hold centuries of human history, all recorded consciousness from those who gave their lives exploring the stars. To us, it's remembrance. To others, it may seem unnatural. Maybe that's why they fear us," the commander said. "They see life where there should be metal. They see ghosts in a machine." The AI's tone softened. "Would you like me to restrict the memory pulses to avoid confusion?" The commander shook their head. "No, let them see. The truth doesn't need to hide." Meanwhile, deep in the lower decks of the ship, Two engineers were working on the coolant systems. One of them paused and looked at the flickering lights above. "Ever wonder if they can feel us?" he asked suddenly. "The Valorians?" the other said, confused. "No," he replied. "The ones stored in the echo arrays. The people." "The voices," his partner smiled faintly. "I don't think they're watching us, if that's what you mean. But I do believe they're part of the ship now. Their knowledge guides us even when we don't realize it." The first engineer nodded slowly. "My grandfather used to say that the dead only disappear if you forget them. Maybe the ship makes sure we never do." Above them, on the observation deck, a faint vibration rippled through the hull. The stars outside flickered for a moment as if the universe itself had taken a breath. The commander glanced up at the status display. "What was that?" "Unknown energy disturbance," said the AI. "It appears to be coming from the Valorian direction." Seconds later, the communication screen flashed. A Valorian face appeared again, this time with tension written across it. "Human Commander, your vessel's presence is causing instability in our systems. Our instruments can't handle the energy your ship emits. What are you doing to us?" The human commander looked at the image calmly. "Nothing. You're doing it to yourself. You're trying to understand something you aren't ready to understand yet." The alien's eyes narrowed. "You speak as if you're testing us." "We don't test anyone," the commander replied. "But knowledge always tests those who seek it." For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them stretched like a drawn bow. Finally, the alien said, "Your ship, it feels alive." "It's alive in its own way," the commander said. "Because we built it with more than metal. We built it with everything we are, our history, our pain, our hope. Every part of this ship carries a piece of humanity." The alien seemed to struggle with the idea. "You built a ship from memory?" "Not just memory," the commander replied. "From belief. We remember so we can move forward. Every name stored inside this ship is someone who believed humanity could reach this far." The communication ended. No threats, no promises, just silence again. But this time it was different. The Valorians had seen enough to know that what floated before them was not just a warship. It was something sacred. Back on their fleet, the alien scientist reviewed the data one more time. "The human ship's energy field is linked to emotional frequencies," one of them reported. "The closer we get, the stronger our instruments react, almost like it's reading us. When we scanned it, it reflected our own signals back, but changed them. It sent them back filled with human brainwave patterns." Another scientist stared in disbelief. "It made us feel fear," she whispered. "The ship made us feel it." The commander realized it too late. The Invictus hadn't attacked them physically. It had defended itself emotionally, reflecting their own unease, amplifying their deepest fear. "End all scans," he ordered sharply. "We cannot continue. That ship is not just a weapon, it's a message." As the alien fleet began to retreat, the humans on the Invictus watched their distant lights fade away. A quiet relief spread through the crew, but also a strange sadness. They didn't want to frighten others. They only wanted to be understood. The commander stood by the main viewport, gazing at the receding ships. "They came searching for weakness," the commander said softly. "But all they found was everything that makes us human." The AI's soft voice replied, "Do you think they'll come back?" "Yes," the commander said. "But next time they'll come with questions instead of fear." The AI paused, then said quietly, "It's strange how fear and curiosity can be so close to each other." "That's what makes us all the same," the commander replied. "That's why, no matter how far we travel, we'll always be searching for understanding, for connection." As the Invictus drifted through the silent stars, its surface glowed faintly with red and gold light. The heartbeat within the ship continued, slow, steady, alive. In the endless darkness of space, that pulse was more than just energy. It was a reminder that no matter how cold the universe seemed, humanity carried warmth with them wherever they went. And far away on the Valorian flagship, one alien officer whispered as he watched the human ship vanish into the black, "They aren't conquerors, they're survivors." The message came without warning. A faint signal blinked on the human battleship's main screen, a strange pulse coming from the alien fleet that had been silently watching them. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The crew of the Invictus just stared at the glowing pattern on the screen. It wasn't a language anyone recognized. It wasn't even sound, it was emotion. A strange wave of energy brushed through the ship, almost like someone was trying to feel them rather than talk to them. The crew exchanged nervous looks. Everyone could sense it now. The aliens were still scanning them, still trying to understand what kind of beings they were. Inside the control room, the air felt heavy. The ship's AI, Astra, flickered to life and said calmly, "Captain, they are trying to communicate through emotional frequency. It's primitive but effective." The captain leaned forward slightly. "Let's answer them," she said. Her voice carried the same calm confidence she always had, even when the situation was uncertain, but not with words. "They need to see who we are." The crew understood immediately. Humanity didn't just speak with words, it spoke through its history, its emotions, and its actions. Within minutes, the Invictus began transmitting a visual message through every open channel the aliens could receive. At first, the aliens saw flashes of light, then shapes, then faces. It was a timeline, a story stretching from a blue planet covered in oceans and forests. They saw humans in their early days, learning to create fire, to build shelter, to form families and communities. Then came ships sailing across vast seas, explorers setting out into the unknown. The message showed moments of both peace and chaos. Wars fought not for glory but for survival. Great cities rising from the ashes of destruction. Machines built not just to conquer but to understand. And through all of it, there was one emotion that never faded. Hope. The Valorians watched in silence. Their scanners picked up the emotional resonance within the message. They could feel what the humans felt. The fear, the courage, the loss, and the stubborn determination that refused to die even in the darkest times. They saw the rise of science, medicine, art, and compassion. They saw humans reaching for the stars not to claim them, but because they couldn't stop wondering what was out there. The final part of the message showed a single image, the Invictus itself, floating in the endless dark, carrying the memories of those who came before. Then a human face appeared on the screen. The captain. Her expression was calm, her eyes steady. She spoke softly, but her voice carried across the galaxy. "You wanted to know who we are. Now you do. We don't seek war. We don't seek control. We only seek to exist freely. But if anyone comes to destroy that freedom, they'll find that humanity doesn't surrender. We endure, always." The message ended there. No threats, no demands, just a silence that said everything. For a long moment, the alien ships remained completely still. The Valorian commander looked at the flickering screen in disbelief. He had seen countless species during his lifetime, some peaceful, some violent, but never one like this. Humanity seemed fragile in body, yet unbreakable in spirit. Their technology was raw and unpredictable, but it pulsed with something alive, emotion. One of his scientists spoke in a trembling voice. "Commander, their energy readings changed during the message. The ship's core, it reacts to emotion. It's like their technology responds to feeling, not just logic." The commander frowned. "Impossible. Machines don't feel." "Maybe not theirs," the scientist said quietly, "but humans built them to understand them. That's what makes them different." Back on the Invictus, the crew waited for a reply, but none came. The alien ships just drifted in silence, watching. The crew didn't know if they were afraid, fascinated, or planning something else. In the lower decks, one of the engineers leaned against a wall, staring at the faint blue light humming through the ship. "Do you think they got the message?" he asked his partner. The other smiled faintly. "If they didn't, they will. They can't ignore what they felt." Hours passed. The alien fleet finally began to move. Slowly, the ships pulled back, forming a defensive pattern around their flagship. They weren't attacking, but they weren't leaving either. It was as if they needed time to process what they had just witnessed. Inside their main control vessel, the Valorian commander stood alone, looking out the viewport at the distant human warship. There was no movement, no aggressive stance, just calm stillness. The humans weren't hiding, and they weren't afraid. He could still hear the words of the message echoing in his mind. "We endure. Always." For a species that had once believed emotion was weakness, that phrase cut deeper than any weapon could. It made them question everything. Could it be that emotion? The very thing they had abandoned long ago was the source of humanity's strength. He ordered a communication lock, telling no one to approach the human ship again. "We've seen enough," he said quietly. But deep down he knew the truth. They hadn't just seen another intelligent race. They had seen a mirror, showing them what they had lost long ago. Back on the Invictus, the crew began returning to their normal routines. Engines hummed, lights dimmed, and the rhythm of the ship returned. Yet something in the atmosphere had changed. The humans knew they had been understood, even if the aliens never said a word. The captain stood near the front window, her hands resting on the railing. Beyond the glass stretched the stars, each one distant yet full of promise. She took a slow breath and whispered to herself. "They've seen us now. The real us." Astra's voice spoke softly beside her. "Do you think they will come again?" The captain smiled faintly. "They always do. Curiosity runs deep in every intelligent mind. But now they'll think twice before treating humans as simple creatures. They've seen what we carry inside us." As the ship drifted away from the alien fleet, its engines lighting up against the dark void, the human crew felt something shift within them too. They weren't just explorers or soldiers anymore. They were messengers, representatives of a race that had endured every kind of hardship and still found reasons to keep moving forward. Far behind them, the alien fleet slowly faded from sight. But among the Valorians, rumors were already spreading. Whispers about a ship that carried the memories of billions, about a species that built machines with emotion, that fought not for power but for purpose. To some, humans were now a mystery worth studying. To others, they were a threat unlike any ever seen. But to those who truly understood the message, humans were something far greater, a reminder that strength doesn't always come from perfection. Sometimes it comes from the unbreakable will to survive, to protect, and to remember. And so, in that quiet corner of space, two civilizations parted ways, one fearful, one hopeful. The Invictus disappeared into the darkness, its engines whispering a single truth to the endless stars: humanity endures. No matter who watches, no matter who listens, the message remains the same. The human spirit cannot be measured by scans or sensors. It can only be felt, like the heartbeat of a ship that carries the soul of an entire species. That was the day the galaxy truly saw humanity, and it would never forget what it saw. The meeting hall of the Valorian High Council was silent. The lights were dim and the air was thick with tension. The council members sat in a circular room made of crystal walls, which reflected the faint glow of the distant stars. On the large central screen, the image of the human battleship, the Invictus, floated quietly in space. For days, their scientists had been studying the data collected from the scans before communication had stopped. At first, the readings made no sense. The energy coming from the human ship didn't match any known source in the galaxy. It wasn't nuclear plasma or antimatter. It was something entirely different. Something alive. The chief scientist spoke first, his voice shaking slightly. "Honored Council, our analysis is complete. The human vessel contains what we can only describe as a living core. It doesn't draw energy from any physical source. Instead, it responds to emotional frequencies, human emotions." A murmur spread through the hall. One of the older council members leaned forward and asked sharply, "You're suggesting their ship is alive?" The scientist nodded. "Not in the way we understand life, but yes. Their ship systems seem to be tied to emotional input. When they feel fear, determination, or unity, the ship's energy readings change. It reacts to them." Another voice from the back interrupted. "Are you saying emotion powers their technology?" The scientist hesitated. "Not powers it, but it influences it. Their technology is built around the concept of memory and feeling. During our scans, we detected billions of consciousness patterns stored within the ship's core. At first, we thought it was a weapon or captured minds, but now we believe it's something else entirely." The commander of the Valorian fleet, who had witnessed the human message firsthand, finally spoke. His tone was calm but heavy. "Explain." The scientist took a deep breath. "The Invictus isn't filled with trapped souls. It's an archive, what the humans call the legacy. Every human who has fallen during exploration or battle has a fragment of their thoughts and memories preserved within the ship. It's not an army of ghosts. It's their history, their honor, their way of remembering the ones they've lost." The hall went completely silent. For a moment, no one could speak. The Valorians were a logical, emotionless race. They had long abandoned the concept of death rituals or remembrance. When one of their kind died, they erased the record, believing attachment only led to weakness. But here was a species that carried its dead with them, not as a burden but as strength. The commander stood slowly. "So you're saying the humans fight with their dead beside them?" The scientist nodded quietly. "Yes, Commander. Every time that ship moves, it carries the voices of those who came before. The more they lose, the stronger their legacy becomes. Whispers rippled across the room. Some were horrified. Others were fascinated. To the Valorians, this was beyond comprehension. They had believed emotions made civilizations unstable, but humanity had somehow turned those emotions into an energy source, a weapon and a form of immortality. One council member, clearly disturbed, said, "This makes them dangerous. A race that draws power from memory and emotion cannot be predicted. We should destroy them before they spread." But the commander shook his head firmly. "Destroy them? You didn't see what I saw. They're not a threat by nature. They only fight when pushed." Their message was clear. They do not seek war. The room filled with debate. Some agreed with the commander. Others demanded immediate action. For every argument, there was an equal counter-argument. Fear and curiosity battled silently within the chamber. After hours of discussion, the High Elder finally spoke, his voice deep and steady. "Perhaps the real danger lies not in them, but in what they represent. We, the Valorians, have forgotten the meaning of emotion. We have built a civilization of logic and perfection. But at what cost? The humans remind us of something ancient, something we lost." The scientist added softly. "They remind us that survival is not only about intelligence, it's about will. Even when everything breaks, they rebuild. When they lose, they rise. They've turned pain into purpose." The commander looked down at the floor, remembering the final words of the human captain. "We endure. Always." Those words echoed in his mind like a haunting melody. For the first time in many cycles, he felt something he hadn't felt in centuries: respect. Meanwhile, far away on the Invictus, the crew had no idea how deeply their message had shaken an entire civilization. Life aboard the ship continued quietly. The engineers maintained the engines, the officers checked navigation systems, and the captain walked the corridors, silently watching her crew. She stopped in front of the memorial wall, a smooth metallic surface lined with glowing names. Each name represented a person who had given their life during humanity's expansion into the stars. When she placed her hand on the wall, the lights pulsed softly, reacting to her touch. A voice came from behind her. "Thinking about them again?" She turned to see one of her officers standing nearby. "Always," she replied gently. "They remind me why we keep going." The officer smiled faintly. "Do you think the aliens understood that message we sent?" "I think they did," she said. "They might not admit it, but they felt it. And that's enough." The ship hummed softly around them, a low vibration that almost felt alive. The captain looked out the window at the stars and said quietly, "We don't carry ghosts. We carry memories. Every name here is a lesson. Every loss pushes us to be better." Her words weren't dramatic or rehearsed, they were simple and true. And perhaps that was what made humanity so different. Back in the Valorian capital, news of the human encounter spread quietly among the scientific circles. Many were still skeptical, but a few began to admire what they had learned. One young researcher, unable to stop thinking about it, whispered to her mentor, "Maybe emotions aren't weakness after all. Maybe they're the reason humans survive what others can't." Her mentor, an older scholar, nodded slowly. "Yes, perhaps that is their greatest weapon, the heart." Across the galaxy, different species began hearing whispers of the event. Tales spread of a strange ship that carried the memories of the dead, of a species that had turned loss into strength. Some dismissed it as a myth, but others began to worry. If humans could harness such power from emotion, what else were they capable of? For the Valorians, the decision was made quietly. They would not engage the humans again. Instead, they would watch from afar. The commander who had first encountered the Invictus gave his final order. No hostility, no provocation. Let them travel in peace. The galaxy isn't ready for them yet. As his ship drifted away from the human vessel, he couldn't help but glance one last time at the glowing warship. It looked peaceful, almost beautiful against the starlit void. He whispered to himself, "You carry your dead, yet you live stronger than any of us. Maybe that is what it means to be truly alive." The Invictus, unaware of his words, continued its silent journey. To the crew, it was just another mission, another system to explore. But without realizing it, they had already changed something far greater than a single world. They had changed how the galaxy saw humanity. From that day forward, the Valorians recorded the human message not as a warning, but as a lesson. A record was kept in their archives titled The Legacy of the Invictus. It read, "We met a species that carries its past into every battle, every journey, and every dream. They remember their dead, they honor their pain, and they move forward with courage. If strength has a form, it is human." And somewhere, light years away, the Invictus moved on, its engines burning softly in the darkness, carrying the whispers of those who had come before. Each heartbeat of the ship was a reminder that no matter the distance, no matter the fear, humanity would always endure. The galaxy slowly moved on after the Valorian encounter, but whispers about humanity had already begun to spread from one star system to another. Some called them dangerous, some called them brilliant. But everyone agreed on one thing: humans were different. They didn't rule by fear, they didn't hide behind technology, and they didn't back down from the unknown. They simply endured. Months passed. The Invictus continued its quiet journey through deep space. Its silver hull glowed faintly under distant starlight, and its engines hummed like a heartbeat in the darkness. Inside, life carried on as usual. The crew trained, repaired, and explored. They didn't speak much about the Valorians anymore, but the memory of that moment, when their message reached another intelligent species, remained in every mind. The captain stood at the viewing deck one evening, watching a nebula swirl in the distance. It looked peaceful, soft clouds of blue and gold light slowly moving across the void. To her, it felt like watching the universe breathe. The ship's AI Astra appeared beside her as a faint holographic shimmer. "Captain," Astra said softly, "long-range sensors have picked up another signal. It's not Valorian. Different frequency, unknown origin." The captain raised an eyebrow. "Are they approaching?" "Negative," Astra replied. "They're observing us, from over 4 light hours away. They seem cautious." The captain smiled faintly. "Good, let them watch. It's what everyone seems to be doing these days." Astra paused for a moment before saying, "You do realize, Captain, humanity has become a topic of fear among some species." "I know," she said. "But fear is just another form of respect. They don't understand us yet, that's all." The AI tilted its head. "And what happens when they finally do understand?" The captain's eyes stayed on the stars. "Then they'll stop fearing us and start learning from us. That's how peace begins." While she spoke calmly, far away, several alien civilizations were already holding their own discussions about Earth and its people. The Valorians had sent a classified report to the Galactic Archive, a report that described humanity's strange emotional technology, their living ships, and their unbreakable will. The report spread quietly through hidden channels, reaching those who sought power and those who sought understanding. One council of distant species debated for days. Some believed humans were a potential ally, a race strong enough to help stabilize the galaxy's unstable borders. Others thought they were a threat, a species too unpredictable, too emotional, too fearless, but no one dared to approach them again, not after what happened to the Valorians. Meanwhile, aboard the Invictus, the crew continued their mission of exploration. They traveled from system to system, mapping unknown stars and collecting samples. But even during their routine days, everyone could feel it, the silent eyes of the galaxy watching them. One night, a young engineer was working near the lower deck when he noticed something strange. The ship's energy core was glowing brighter than usual, and faint echoes filled the air, soft voices like whispers blending with the sound of the engines. He froze for a moment, then smiled softly. He knew what it was. The voices were from the legacy, the digital memories of the fallen humans stored inside the ship. They never spoke words, but sometimes their presence could be felt. A sense of calm, courage, and warmth filled the room. It reminded every living crew member that they were never truly alone. Later that night, the captain gathered her crew in the main hall. "We've crossed into another unknown region," she said. "There are no records here, no maps, no colonies, just the stars. Remember, out here we don't just represent Earth, we represent every human who ever dreamed of reaching beyond it." The crew nodded. Everyone knew what she meant. Humanity's journey into space wasn't just about exploration. It was about proving that their species could survive anywhere, even in the cold silence of infinity. Back in the Valorian capital, the commander who had first encountered the Invictus sat alone in his chamber. He had resigned from military service, unable to forget what he had seen. On his table sat a single recording, the human message that had changed everything. He watched it again, the image of the human captain appearing on the screen, her calm voice filling the room. "We don't seek war. But if you come for us, remember, humans are what we've always been, the species that refuses to die." He turned off the recording and stared at his reflection. For years, his people had believed that logic was strength and emotion was weakness. But now he wasn't so sure. He had seen a civilization that turned loss into fuel, sorrow into unity, and fear into courage. He whispered to himself, "Maybe it's time we remembered what it means to feel." He decided to share the message, not as a warning, but as inspiration. Slowly it began spreading among his people, changing how they thought, how they lived. The story of the humans began to reshape the galaxy's view of strength. Back aboard the Invictus, months turned into years. Humanity's presence grew. They began building new outposts on distant worlds, small colonies filled with laughter, work, and hope. The humans didn't build walls or weapons first. They built gardens, schools, and observatories. To them, survival wasn't enough. They wanted to live fully, even among the stars. Sometimes alien explorers came quietly, watching from a distance. A few even gathered the courage to land and speak. What they found surprised them. Not cold warriors, but people who offered water, food, and stories. One alien researcher, after spending a few weeks among the humans, sent back a message to her leaders. "They are not what we thought. They carry weapons, yes, but also songs, laughter, and kindness. Their power doesn't come from fear. It comes from heart." That message spread faster than any government could contain it. Slowly, the image of humanity began to change. They were no longer just the mysterious warriors of the Invictus. They were builders, dreamers, and survivors. Still, even as peace grew, the galaxy remembered one unspoken truth. Humans were not to be underestimated. They might forgive, but they never forgot. They might smile, but they carried the strength of generations who had faced impossible odds and refused to give up. One quiet night, the Invictus drifted near the edge of a dying star. The ship's sensors recorded its last light as it collapsed into darkness. The captain watched silently. "Beautiful," she whispered. "Even stars have to end someday." Astra responded softly, "Yes, but even in death they leave light behind, much like your kind." The captain smiled. "That's the human way. We keep shining, even after we're gone." As the ship turned away from the fading light, the stars ahead seemed endless. Somewhere out there were more mysteries, more worlds, and maybe even more civilizations waiting to meet them. Humanity wasn't done yet. This was just the beginning. Far across the galaxy, in places humans hadn't yet reached, stories of the Invictus continued to grow. Some called it the Ship of Memories. Others called it the Vessel of Souls. But the humans knew it by a simpler name, home. The Invictus carried not only weapons and technology, but the dreams, pain, and courage of an entire species. It reminded everyone that humanity's greatest power was never its machines. It was its heart. And so, under the quiet light of distant suns, the ship continued its long journey. The stars reflected softly off its surface as it moved, steady and unyielding, through the endless dark. For the galaxy, the humans had become a mystery wrapped in hope and fear. But for the humans themselves, they were simply doing what they had always done, moving forward, carrying their memories, and writing their story among the stars. No matter how far they traveled, they never forgot where they came from. And in every corner of the universe, the name Invictus whispered the same truth to all who listened.